What's going on, gang? Doc and Jock podcast. Coach Joe's flying kind of solo. Dr. Danny's not on the Skype chat tonight, but we have Anton Jefferson, Olift Magazine, who does not live in Tokyo, folks. He lives in Hong Kong. Anton and I have, as you might expect, trying to communicate with someone magically through the internet, even half a world away. There are some difficulties. We've missed this call before. We almost missed it tonight because I confused the two. I'm just an ignorant white guy from New York, Anton, and I assume that Hong Kong and Tokyo are the same place, but they are not, sir. So introduce yourself to our podcast right now of Olift fame, but I know you're doing some work even with Cheryl Hayworth, who's been on the podcast too. But take a minute, talk to our folks about who you are, what you're doing in Hong Kong, and then we'll get this thing going. Very cool. Very cool. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Okay. Well, I guess that's the time to do it, right? Because you can recover, right? You have old skills. I think they say anytime, regardless of the monetary or the lucrativeness of the position, but when you're young and you can learn skills and new things, you should take that opportunity. So, talk to us a little bit about the risk there. I mean, you're not talking about going across the street, across the river. You're talking about jumping Hong Kong. For folks who are even considering doing that, maybe one thing that might push them to do it, and one thing that once they arrive, you could make their transition just a little bit easier. You know what I mean? Because I think right now I'm afraid. Jumping the ocean, the language barrier, all that stuff kind of frightens me a little bit. I could not imagine taking my family overseas and dealing with all that. But obviously, you're someone who did it. So unfrighten me. When my wife gets out the Army, sell me on Hong Kong. Go for it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Got it. Sure. Okay. I hear you. Yeah, I think my impression of Hong Kong is tell me if I'm wrong, but Double Impact. I think that was set in Hong Kong where they built that tunnel. I think that was it. But whatever, you know, that's an interesting movie, right? Interesting setup, but Hong Kong isn't that interesting. But we should check that place out though. Cheryl was saying when I had her on the podcast last, she was talking about a rugby festival of all the places and she said, yeah, yeah, sure. That's right. That's right. Well, and then bring up Cheryl. You're working with Cheryl. She's coaching you up, right? Yep. Yep. Got it. And what are her eyes like as a coach? I mean, she is when we've talked to her, I'm always intrigued by her because she can offer some great insight in terms of the competitive experience. How do you take training to the platform and then do well? And she's got some neat things to say about that. But in terms of her technique wise and what she's been able to bring to you, and how has she improved your weightlifting? Okay. Hmm. Got it. And I'm sure that's got to be a boost of confidence to have, bronze medalists telling you just go do it. I mean, it's cool that there's different styles of coaching, right? And maybe for you, might be how would a young lifter checking out the podcast, someone maybe who's been dabbling in weightlifting but they've been doing it alone and they're looking at a coach. How would you might make that competition coach match even beforehand? Because I'd imagine if you step into that competitive setting with the wrong coach, it could be a disaster if they get you anxious. So did you know right from the beginning it was a good fit with Cheryl, and then maybe what you did to ensure that before you even stepped on the platform? Got it. Okay. Very good. Okay. Very good. Now, and what you talking about your own coaching and trying to grow a program? For one, you're a foreign dude in a foreign land teaching people a foreign sport, right? That's a rough setup, but you kind of seem to jump into it, full bodied, whole heart, open eyes, and you're taking charge over there a little bit. So just because we also have some folks who are into coaching who are trying to start their own thing. What would you be some advice? New guy, new land, new sport. What's the start? So when you started off and Pure, give me the name of the gym again in Hong Kong. So there you go. Largest lifestyle brand in Asia. You're going in there to start weightlifting. So you brought up how you were on the platform and everyone's watching you. Did this start out where you just went out and trained at a certain time and then would gather followers that way? Or did you say, hey, I'm going to do a little clinic at this time on this day? Or what was that start with the kind of scheduling and the technical aspect of it? Got it. Got it. You just set it up, and then So I want to go back to that original kid who's in the. He's got the chains on. He's got no shoes on his feet, but somewhere you saw a weightlifter's potential. And I'm always interested in what a coach sees that kind of turns them on, whether it's a strut or a particular jump or a move or just their general aura. What attracted you to that athlete to say, hey, give this a go? I think this is your sport. Yeah, sure. There you go. Got it though. Yeah. Well, you bring up hero effect, hero factor, and we have a couple young heroes in the states, kind of going crazy, kind of putting USA weightlifting a little bit on the map. Even recently, where CJ Cummings is on the cover of the IWF magazine or the IWF journal or whatnot, and that's pretty impressive, right? And he was actually just honored by Aleco at the AO, which was pretty cool. It's important to me to bring up some of this kind of hero effect and the youth kind of promoting the sport and the travel and whatnot with it. Is that same thing kind of flowing in Hong Kong where there are young kids getting interested in it, or do you think it's going to take something like you said, you're a young guy going to Worlds, and do other kids, do you think, notice that stuff? Yeah. And jogging, they're jogging and in fanny packs and neon pants. Okay. Walkmans on their hip. Cool. And then your guys' opinion. I mean, because OLift is a publication that I'd imagine, and is it mostly read by U.S. citizens, right? And what's the deal? How do you guys feel about the youth here and a kid like C.J. Cummings who has such hope? And what do you think his impact might be on the sport here moving forward in the states even? Sure. Mm, that's right. He's a pretty good run. Yeah, talking to Ray a little bit. I was in Colombia for a little while, and we would go down to Savannah here and there and got to talking with Ray a touch here and there. I see him, we say hello, we talk, but they're in good hands, those kiddos that he trains, because he doesn't push them too hard, but he lets them come along, and he seems to be amongst decent stock of kiddos who are pretty dang talented, because supposedly even the sister was a pretty talented weightlifter as well. Yeah, and it's interesting what they're doing there, and Ray goes about his business. We've actually tried to get him on the podcast a little bit, so maybe if he's listening, Ray, you can come on. It's a safe space for you, buddy. But what I like about Ray is he wants to be in the background. He doesn't do it. He doesn't do it for any accolade, but for the kid to be happy, and he wants all the kids to be happy, which I think is neat. And through that, you see the success of this young guy. Do you think, when we're looking through the Olympics, the next one's coming through, right? We just had some summer games. The next ones that roll through, CJ, how's he going to do? No problem. Right now? Okay. Yeah. Well, it might even be the 85s, because I think his total would have given him the 85s too, I believe, at the AO this year as a 69. If it serves me correctly, I'm not sure. I have to go back. Don't fact check me on that, but sure. And it's interesting you bring that up, because it's something that I've noticed too. And you hear a gold medalist do an interview and they kind of dig into their past. It's like, yeah, 12 years old, dad took me here, my brother dragged me there, I've been around. So, but you also have to play this interesting game where if you go too hard too early, you bust a kid up, you get him hurt, you'll burn him out. So what do you think the secret there is to dragging him along and building that base effectively? Because you can even look at a guy outside of weightlifting like Tiger Woods. Now listen, don't get me wrong, he killed it, he was getting it, and he was the best in the world for a long time. Obviously but obviously there were some effects, right, where maybe we went too hard too early, whatever. He did not have Jack Nicholson's career, right? So how do we go for longevity but still productivity with young kiddos? There you go. Marry the right girl. Yeah. Mine too, 100%. Mm-hmm. Go for it. And it is like that because in my talks with Ray, it's funny because you'll ask him, and he doesn't know what his true maxes are because to his degree, he hasn't put him through the true 1 rep max. And he told me an interesting story about it might have been Omar getting ready for school where they had a certain test they were doing, and rather than max for load, he stopped him at a particular thing, and he said, "Well, when you get to that, do it as many times as you can." And he did. He did it a bunch of times, or X amount of numbers. And to this day, it's cool to me that Ray doesn't know what his maxes are, and that they keep it patient, because I've seen a lot of times, whether it's coaching CrossFit athletes or my own weightlifters or people from afar, that 30-pound PR is pretty sexy. But then where do you go after that? You either get hurt or you hit the plateau. And it's really interesting to see such a talented kid and a good coach like Ray practice restraint and keep that kid healthy. Because I think you look at a guy like CJ and you think, well, he could possibly own every male record in whatever weight class he decides to stop at, which is really interesting. So it's a cool story. Going back to just folks training, and you got kids, you got other folks working. Some get into a technical aspect of just kind of coaching a little bit. I know you like working with grassroots folks. Some low-hanging fruit for our guys who aren't going to be going to Hong Kong, for folks who are going to be kind of training on their own and experimenting a little bit. You got any advice for them? What's the low-hanging fruit for the newbie who's just kind of an enthusiast, who wants to stay healthy and experience it, but not necessarily interested in competing? Very good. Very good. Yeah. Very good. You bring up USAW a little bit, and you mentioned this series and them transitioning away from just these different totals. give our viewers and even myself a little bit of because I've even had lifters come to me. I was I had a lifter first time qualifying for the American Open. He did pretty good in the 105B session. Actually won it, and he was pretty pumped to be there. But then he's talking about next year how low the totals are. What do you think USAW is getting at? And even before you do that, describe the series and what the American Open is going to look like next year moving forward. Got it. That's right. Yeah, and I would give USAW props for trying something new, trying something different, right? Because, they are getting new people looking at the sport, so why not give them something different? And I think that's great. I think another option I always thought would be cool, and we'll play devil's advocate a little bit and just mess it around. I always liked the idea. It looked to me with the regional event they did last year or 2 years ago, it looked to me like they were almost going to head towards a spot where, like, you could have a Southeast champion, a Northeast champion, a West Coast champion, a Midwest champion. It almost seemed to me like it would be neat to have that lower tier almost be a regional winner and then have regional winners go after it at national championships or something like that. Do you know what I mean? I always thought that would be kind of fun. For me, it's like always, rather than just qualifying at a local meet, for me, that competitor in me wants to say, well, if you want to get to the next spot, you should have to beat everybody on the same playing field a little bit. What would you think about it? Like kind of almost like what CrossFit does with their regionals. What do you think about going that route? Yeah. Yeah. That's right. When York Barbell was doing everything, right? I hear you. Sure. Very cool. And then also, we talk a little bit about CrossFit and this kind of CrossFit effect. I think there's no doubt that CrossFit has brought folks into the sport. You hear that. Yeah, and you hear so much, and you hear about it, and it's even going to the point now where I think that they're looking to some of these kind of CrossFit style events to bring, especially females, into the sport of weightlifting, which is interesting too. Talk to us about is the same CrossFit effect being seen in a place like Hong Kong? Sure, sure. No, and I'll thank CrossFit for developing some finely toned hamstrings into women across the world. Thank you for that. There's nothing better than an elite set of hamstrings walking across the gym. That girl deadlifts and squats. Keep doing it, gang. No, and I think it's great because, two, I think women saw that you can work hard, and it's actually really hard to gain gorilla status. Lots of guys like myself have been at it for a long time trying to do that, and that's harder than you'd think. So work hard, get after it, train, and I think I like that aspect of it. The thing that I've noticed, too, that we always have to coach the CrossFit athletes to at least get out of it is that every day is not a competition day. You know, I like competing, I like working hard, but gang, today's a training day. We can leave a little bit in the tank, we can make a deposit, and then we can build it up for the next time. Well, yeah, more. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's right. My first introduction to weightlifting coaching in a strict manner was after I got out of CrossFit. I worked with a gentleman named Stephen Powell, who's a friend of Cheryl's, and he couldn't stand me in between reps because if I'm not doing something, I'm going to be talking about doing something, and it's just like relax, relax, be quiet, relax, take your time. So it's interesting. It's a different mindset. I think it's cool. And, going back to even what I really appreciate about what weightlifting forces you to do, because I came out of a football setting, a team setting. Even when I went to the games, it was a CrossFit, it was a team setting. You cannot hide on the weightlifting platform. And I think that to some degree, anyone who's into barbell sports, whether you get into powerlifting or weightlifting, I think there's a lot of value in doing a competition. Because even if you run a marathon, you can hide in the crowd and get your box, check your box for doing it. But the cool thing about an individual sport like weightlifting is you're on that platform and you can really learn a lot about yourself by getting up there and doing it alone, right? Can you perform by yourself? So I love it for that regard. So moving on, I want to talk a little bit about the OLIF magazine, the project, where folks can find it, where you guys are finding articles, what you're doing to drum up some traffic for that site, because you guys are. If is OLIF a magazine where it's for the purist, or is it for the recreational lifter, or who are you trying to attract? Okay. Exclusive. I love it. Sure. Yeah. So it's not necessarily just O-Lift magazine now. It's just going to be like an O-Lift platform, blogging, information, podcasting, and you know what? I think I forget who I was listening to recently, but it was like everyone's so fancy now, where they're afraid to kind of take a step back and even just evaluate the situation and see it work. Because I know me, I've tried hard to blog, and it's hard for me to always write content without a deadline. But what I have noticed is the podcasting. It's something that I like to do. I like to do it. I can put it out consistently, and I think it's fun to do. You get after it. For whatever reason, and my wife will probably have the answer for you. I have a lot easier time running my mouth than typing on the keyboard. You're right. So whatever that is, it works, and supposedly I can be attentive enough to ask some decent questions. But I love the podcasting format, and to me, I would give you some kudos to just realize you evaluate and you fix it and you decide what the heck's working. So what podcasting wise, who do we have on the show? What are you guys talking about? Is it just kind of like if people are familiar with O-Lift, that it's going to be similar to what you're talking about on the podcast? I hear you. Sure. That is interesting. Sure. And I actually think that's smart because I'm hashing out this topic, this idea with another coach, another big website idea. But part of this thing is I keep trying to tell these guys that there's an interesting opportunity to just talk about things because even looking at something like the BCS or the college football playoff, it's such a big thing where the entry into it can jazz up interest in itself. Controversy is not so bad. Just talk about it. What are your opinions on getting a new bar, getting this? The new tiebreaker rule that it's not going to go to bodyweight anymore. It's interesting stuff to chat it out. And I want to actually go back to you brought it up a little bit. The females coming up that you think we should need to be promoting, and they moved the meter, right? Women. We had a little giggle. We're talking about hamstrings and stuff, but honestly, women do perform. And they perform well, and it's amazing to watch them do it. Who are the women folks need to be looking out for? Yep. Okay. Mm. They're the strong side of the team. I mean, honestly, this year, and and it's interesting to me talking about weightlifting women because I'll talk about weightlifting with young girls that I know, family members, friends, and why aren't you weightlifting? They play sports, they don't want to weightlift. And again, it goes back to that funny thing where they're bulking up. But I'll show them pictures of some of the young girls coming up. I'm like, look, this girl isn't a gorilla, right? She's not, she isn't, she's not burly and big. She's still a girl, and I love that part of it too. So, I, anytime I can, I hate to make a joke of this because I'm being serious, but anytime we could see a woman on the platform doing her thing, I think it's great. I want to push more of it. And as a guy with 2 daughters, let's give them an option where it's okay to be strong. In what avenue, men or women included, if you can't be strong and pick some things up a little bit better, where wouldn't you benefit from it? So I think weightlifting is just another way to do it. You don't have to deadlift. It's not powerlifting. It's not bench pressing all the time. I think it's neat to be able to mix a little technique and art with it. So it's fired up to me. I think weightlifting is 100% on the rise. I think anyone not paying attention is going to miss that. And honestly, publications like yourself, guys like you hustling, just trying to get the word out, coaching all comers, working with all comers, doing what they can. I think it's moving the meter. Have you guys gotten any response from does USAW notice the effort, and do they get a pat on the back from that at all? I'm always interested in that. Okay. Sure. Sure. Yep. That's right. That's right. Well, very cool. Well, Anton, give our listeners real quick. Anyone wants to reach out? Maybe there's a young coach out there who's looking to maybe pass some content along on your blog, looking to follow Olive Magazine, looking to follow you. Just take a few moments, let folks know where they can find you, and just shoot on all your. I'm sure you're on all the social media. You doing Snapchat? You doing Periscope? Whatever the hell's going on out there. Yeah, that's right. That's it. No, it's fun. I talking weightlifting is cool. Like I've told it before in another podcast where weightlifting is kind of what I've adopted as my golf, and it's like something that I'm just gonna do. I just see too much value in whether I can do snatch at 125 or if I can get an empty barbell and close grip it and squat that thing. There's value in going overhead and being able to express it, and not to mention it's pretty cool to do it heavy when other people can as well and still look good doing it. And I will tell you this too, more than being able to do big weight people notice aesthetically when you do it right, which I think, and I've been more and more drawn to that than anything. The average person knows shit technique and from great technique, and I'm intrigued by that. And once you start to do some skill, my coaching has become more skill based lately. But no, Anton, we appreciate it. Hopefully we spread the word here. Hopefully we interact. We'll have to get on your what OLIFT magazine thinks of what Coach Joe has to say. It's the first time I've referenced myself, gang, in the third person on my own podcast. It did feel a little weird, but I'm all right with it. I like things a little bit weird, Anton. I like them a little bit weird. Me and my wife, we were just at a wedding down in Baltimore, and I kept telling her there's going to be a point tonight where I'm going to act like someone different. I'm just going to make this weird as I can in front of your friends, in front of anybody. And you don't know when it's going to happen, but it'll be for the benefit of us all. But, guys, Anton jumping on the Doc and Jock podcast for the benefit of us all in weightlifting. We appreciate it. Anton, I hope his advice, if you weren't listening, you weren't paying attention, you didn't prove that if you have a body, you're an athlete. Thanks a lot, gang. Appreciate you. Cool. Anton, that was fun, buddy. Good, easy recording.